Coming over here. If you're there, there's got to be something.
I wanted to begin tonight with a story from Cape Breton about a couple of old fiddlers, Angus and Archie, known each other for years and years, farming in little farms close beside each other, played at concerts and at dances together and so forth. And as they got older, they began to wonder about what's going to happen next, and what lies beyond the grave, and particularly, is there music in heaven? So they debated this point at some length and concluded that there really had to be music in heaven because it would be a hell of a heaven without, and came to the agreement that whoever went first would find some way of getting back and telling the other fella whether or not there was music in heaven. So the time goes by, and by Archie dies, and Angus is out plowing his field one day, and suddenly there's a great commotion in the air and a whirling and a roaring and so forth, and Angus is terribly frightened, and then he suddenly thinks, oh, I wonder if this is it. Archie, he says, is that you? And the voice out of the whirlwind says, yes, Angus, it's me. Oh, that's good, says Angus, and do you have news? Yes, I have news. There's good news and there's bad news. Well, give me the good news first. Well, the good news is, yes, there's music in heaven. My goodness, it's out of this world, or out of that one at least. We got Winston Scotty here. We got Big Ronald McCachran. We got Angus Chisholm, and the music is just fabulous. But that's good, says Angus. That's good. I'm delighted. He said, and now, and what's the bad news? Ah, says the voice from the whirlwind. The bad news is you're playing Saturday night. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the environment, a subject dear to everybody in this room, I know. And I guess my point here is there's good news and there's bad news. And I want to talk about the bad news first and the good news second, unlike our friend Archie. And I can describe the bad news, I think, by 4 shapes. And the first of those shapes is a circle. And that's really the shape of nature. That's the way things happen in the natural world. Everything runs in cycles, from the tides and the circulation in the North Atlantic to the hydrological cycle, to the life cycle of birds and animals and fish, to the circulation of our own blood. Everything in cycles. And as things die and decay, they form food for the next part of the cycle. There's no such thing as waste. At no point in those cycles is there any waste. It's just waste equals food, and the cycles go on. The second shape is the shape of industrial production, and it goes like this. Take, make, waste. We take material from the earth, we take energy from the earth, we make products out of it, and then it goes to the dump. And everything we do in that process goes to the dump sooner or later. Everything around us, everything in this room, everything in this building is eventually going to be waste. Hadn't thought of that myself until quite recently. And then I was handed a piece of paper by my friend Ray Cote, who teaches at Dalhousie University. And what Ray showed me was this very process, except that what he pointed out was, if you start with this material over here that you're taking from the earth, by the time you get to having produced a product, 93% of that is already waste. 93%. It's slag heaps, it's waste heap, it's waste heat, it's pollution going into the air and the water. 93% is not used to make useful products. So 7% becomes useful products. Of that 7%, 80% is used once and discarded. So we're talking about packaging and plastic bags and gasoline and paper, newspaper, toilet paper, all that stuff. One use and it's gone. And the net result of that is that 90 days after sale, 99% of what we took from the earth has become waste. 99% within 90 days. That I found a shocking statistic. The third shape is this shape, and that's the shape of exponential growth. And exponential growth is what happens when any process continues to grow in a steady way. It will have a certain doubling time, and the doubling will get bigger and bigger as the quantities get bigger and bigger. For example, David Suzuki likes to talk about a test tube full of food for a bacterium, and one bacterium in the test tube. And the bacterium divides every second. So at the end of 1 second, you have 2 bacteria. At the end of 2 seconds, 4 bacteria. End of 3 seconds, 8 bacteria, and so forth. And he says, let us suppose that the bacterium fill the entire test tube in an hour, doubling every second. At what point was the test tube half full? And the answer is at 59 seconds. When was it a quarter full? At 58 seconds. When was it an eighth full? At 57 seconds. And if at that point some bacterium in that test tube had said, guys, I think it's getting a little crowded here. I think we got a population problem. Everybody else would have said, what are you talking about? There's 7/8 food and 1/8 us. And they're 4 seconds from disaster. Now let's suppose, says Suzuki, that in that last second, one of them says, guys, we really have a problem here. Let's see if we can find some more habitat for ourselves. And they managed to produce 3 more test tubes. Right? How long will it take to fill them? Well, at 60 seconds, they filled 1 test tube. They double again in 1 second, there's the second test tube. And in 2 seconds, they have filled all 4 test tubes. Now, this is wonderful when it takes the form of compound interest in your bank account. But it's not very wonderful when it takes the form of resource depletion or energy use or population. We are the only people to have seen the population of the world double in our own lifetimes. That's that accelerating, that's the graph. And ultimately, that is the graph of catastrophe. The fourth shape is the shape of a teeter-totter. And I use that one to illustrate the fact that there is a piece of the environmental puzzle which is always going to be social justice. And as we go up in terms of our use of resources and the lifestyle that we maintain and the pollution that we put out into